Kenny Boynton Jr., born May 12, 1991, and Erving Walker, born January 17, 1990. Erving Walker and Kenny Boynton were legends where they're from and next in line in New York City and Florida, respectively, to put on for their cities in the NBA. When they came together in college, both were supposed to create one of the best backcourts in college basketball and waste no time taking those talents to the league. For the 5'8" Erving Walker, before he was arrested as a senior in 2012 for stealing a $3 taco from a street vendor and fleeing from the cops, leading to his arrest and petty theft misdemeanor charges, wasn't ranked high nationally leaving high school, although a top 100 recruit, ranked 75th, but in New York City, he was seen as a basketball prodigy, following in the footsteps of Sebastian Telfair. He was able to sign a full scholarship with the Florida Gators over Villanova because Billy Donovan said he saw a lot of himself in Walker and believed that although he didn't quite stack up in size to other top guards, he was just as prepared as they were, coming from where he's from and having to battle daily because of his diminutive frame. He joined the Gators in 2008. Kenny Boynton was an interesting prospect because unlike Walker, he actually had good size at 6'2", although that came with a caveat we'll talk about later. A hometown Florida kid, Boynton had everything you would want when it comes to the start you'll need in high school that gives you the best chance to make the NBA. He was a dominant scorer that when hot could score at will and in bunches. He once eclipsed Teddy Dupe's 56-point record with 61 points in a game, 3 points shy of the all-time Florida County High School single-game record for points set by Phillip Helms with 64. Boynton had all the on-court tools to be considered by the NBA in that he was quick, used to being the number one guy, could shoot and take over games with his ability to get anywhere he wanted to on the floor. Add to that, he was a McDonald's All-American and Parade All-American, the two major recognitions wanted by every high school player that can set you up nicely to become a one-and-done prospect and propel you straight to the NBA. Both guys were standouts at Florida, Boynton enrolling in 2009, a year after Walker, creating a dynamic backcourt attack that not many defenses could stay in front of. But in the next 4 years, all they saw was player after player join the team, only to leave them both behind for the NBA, while they eventually never got that opportunity, both going undrafted in the 2012 and 2013 drafts. What became of that from there was a long journey from one overseas country to another for short stays and limited reward other than getting the chance to play basketball for a living. What happened to this once promising Florida backcourt and two individuals who at one point had a missed shot at the NBA? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth. Let's get it.
Y'all ready to keep this thing moving?
Erving Walker is a 5'8" guard from Brooklyn, New York that grew up idolizing Stephon Marbury and Sebastian Telfair like any other New York City guard. Since 5 years old, he was already playing with 7 and 8-year-olds and not losing by that much. In fact, he expected to win against those guys and would cry on the walk back home when he didn't. He was an extremely competitive kid, like I'd say most New York players are, which I give credit. He racked up awards and accolades consistently, even though always at a size disadvantage. He participated in the Jordan Brand Classic as a senior, scoring 20 points and 11 assists. He was the MVP of the Spring League and won a Catholic League championship as a junior. Heavily recruited by Florida and Villanova, he chose Florida because of the immediate impact he could have on a team that missed the tournament before. Kenny Boynton is a 6'2" guard from Pompano Beach, Florida, and as mentioned, had the typical high school career of most Stunted Growth features in that he accomplished almost everything you could think of as a high school prospect. As a senior, he averaged 33 points a game and third all-time in points scored in Florida history. Also, as mentioned, recognized as a top 12 recruit, McDonald's, and Parade All-American. Wanting to continue the success, he stayed home and joined the Gators a year after Erving. Stunt number 1, undersized. Let's start here because for both these guys, they suffer most from this growth stunt, literally. It's the most obvious in both their stories, and similar stories is a huge reason I decided to feature them together. For Kenny, 6'2" is actually not that bad and lines right up with where the game's point guards were that were having success around the early 2010s. Keywords, point guards. That's the thing about Boynton. He was 6'2", but he had literally no point guard in him for a large part of his amateur career. He was as shooting guard could get, in that he never saw a shot he thought was a bad one, and he loved challenging the defense in this way. Sometimes you get a guard that you can tell has some distribution skills to him, and with a little work, could slide over to the point guard and still be effective. But for Boynton, you knew that even if he gave Erving Walker a rest and took over point guard duties, he was still looking to score first, second, and third. It's why a Bradley Beal could come in after him at Florida in the same system, shoot a lot worse, and average less points and still be a one-and-done player, selected 3rd overall in the draft. Bradley Beal was 6'4", just 2 inches taller, but met the height requirement better and wasn't the liability Boynton would have been to a team. That's a $250 million 2-inch difference. Erving Walker at 5'8" listed, which means he was probably closer to 5'6", was always at a disadvantage but had an Earl Boykins shot at making the league. But like Kenny, he too was a bit out of position. He was also more of a scorer than true point guard, averaging 3.8 assists for his Gator career. At that size, he would have needed to average closer to Trae Young college averages of almost 9 a game, and maybe he could fit better in position as a point guard and be drafted. Scouts though saw him as a scoring guard in a point guard's body and a huge liability because it's not like he scored at elite levels to consider letting it slide. Being just an okay scorer, below average to average assist man, and way below average height and athleticism for a point guard, he too didn't get an NBA opportunity. Stunt number 2, staying too long. In sports, it basically works like this nowadays for most prospects. Basketball is an age-sensitive sport among other factors like health and talent. All three are equally important, and capitalizing on those at expected points can mean the difference of millions of dollars, and to say you achieved a lifelong dream you only get one youth to do. In short, this is seen as your potential. Two equally talented players at the same age that leave school and enter the NBA at different times can mean a vast difference in where teams see their potential ceiling reaching, and can mean different opportunities all around. For Kenny Boynton, he came into Florida with a much higher potential ceiling than Erving Walker, being at least 6'2" and a highly ranked recruit. For him, all that was needed was to show he had the ability to play the point guard full-time and do a solid enough job that his transition to the NBA was easily noticeable. That, or he could score at elite levels where his height didn't matter. Upon his college announcement, I knew he'd have a tough job at showing his point guard skills because the team already had the diminutive Walker manning that position. Of course, Walker was the perfect fit for his game and allowed him to be the true scorer he is, but that shouldn't have been his goal when selecting a school. Over 4 years, he was shockingly unable to show either a great scoring ability or that he can be an NBA point guard, and I think that killed his shot at being drafted. Erving needed to come in and show he was a true point guard at that size and average high levels of assists while being a great leader of his team, a la Mateen Cleaves. Scoring is cool, but would have had to been crazy averages like an Earl Boykins to prove his value, even at that size. In 4 years, he showed flashes of being a solid assist man, but not enough for the height risk. As the years went by, they were seniors and their potential had all but disappeared after not showing these things. Stunt number 3, an afterthought. At draft point, both Boynton and Walker entering were both afterthoughts to their respective classes, with all the prospects that showed what they were supposed to as amateurs, and Walker and Boynton didn't. You have to adjust your game in college to best fit the NBA, not what's best for you at the time. Boynton was a scorer in high school and big enough to get away with it. When the NBA's watching, it matters how they project you on an NBA team. He never changed his style to fit the league as a point guard and not a small shooting guard who still didn't shoot the ball extremely well. Walker became a huge afterthought after having not shown his NBA worth in 4 years as a leader and distributor, nor high-level scorer at 12 points a game, along with the arrest for stealing a taco as a senior with maturity expectations. An incident he told officers he was just playing around. Huge red flag that a senior with so much at stake at his size to be quote playing around in the most unfunny way. He could have literally been shot for that, especially in Florida, seeing as he fled from police until caught. His chances were slim to none at that point. After going undrafted, both began long careers overseas in multiple different countries, Boynton finding success in the CBA and Walker all over Europe. All in all, making the NBA is a game you're not given instructions for. You'd think Florida would have told or did a better job helping these guys realize what they needed to adjust to make the NBA, but college coaches care about their own job security, and that means you winning games in college. Most could care less about your professional future. Two solid college guards with a lot of expectations. Unfortunately, for these reasons, their growth was stunted. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.